Welcome back to boho.com and boho Macrame. My name is Nicole, and in today's tutorial we will be going over two different ways to incorporate scrap cords to form a boho wall hanging. So many of you may know that I macrame almost on a daily basis, which means I accumulate a lot of scrap cords from my macrame projects. I have a large bag of scraps that I have accumulated for quite some time now, and a lot of times I try my best to use up the scraps in many of my projects, whether it is for tassels, for extra fringe, or even for smaller projects such as feather earrings or keychains. This specific wall hanging in particular, I actually ended up using a lot of my scrap cords just because I had some longer 80 centimeter and 40 centimeter long scrap cords that I had accumulated from some large wall hanging projects. And so I did use a lot of that up with this project. So if you have shorter or longer scrap cords, then this project may be perfect for you to use up those cords. If you're brand new to macrame, or if you don't have any scraps lying around, that is totally okay. This project is a great beginner level project. We will be learning how to add fluffy fringe onto the piece using shorter cord lengths. We will also be making the square knot in a slightly different way than usual by using the inner cords instead of the outer cords as the working cords, and we will also be adding longer fringe at the bottom in multiple layers. These are some great techniques that you can learn to incorporate into your own macrame designs. If you guys enjoyed this tutorial, make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up, and if you guys haven't already, click subscribe to stay tuned for more videos just like this one. And with that, let's begin. To begin, you will need some materials and supplies. I've used 4mm cotton cord for this pattern, as well as a 16-inch long driftwood. This is the piece of driftwood that I will be using for the pattern today. The pattern is only 11 inches in width, so if you have a dowel or driftwood from about 12 inches to 16 inches, it should work for this piece. I found this piece of driftwood at a local park and river. If you guys are interested in seeing how I treat my driftwood and how I find my driftwood, you can check out my video tutorial, which I will link up here for you. The cord that I will be using to start the base of the pattern is a 4mm single strand cotton cord from our foundation cord line. This cord is made 100% natural cotton. It is super soft, high quality cotton cord, and what I love about this cord is not only how soft and comfortable it is to knot with, but that it is super sturdy and it doesn't unravel too easily, which is very important when you are first starting out with macrame. You don't want a cord that unravels super easily, or else it will make the unknotting and knotting super difficult. Like I mentioned in the intro, we will be using a ton of scrap cords for this project. If you don't have any scrap cords, you can just cut from your spool of cord, but if you do have a bunch of smaller and longer scrap cords, then take them out because we will be incorporating them into this project today in the form of fluffy fringe and then also layered fringe at the bottom of the piece. I will go over the specific sizes of scrap cords you will need later in the tutorial once we get to that part of the pattern. Start by hanging your dowel or driftwood up, and then we will take a strand of 200 centimeter long cord and attach it onto the center of the driftwood or dowel using a lark's head knot. So fold the cord in half and take the loop end to the back of the dowel, and then place the cord ends through the loop at the front. Then pull on the cord ends to tighten the lark's head knot. You will be repeating these lark's head knots for the remainder of the 17 cords at 200 centimeters long. So continue taking each cord, folding them in half, and then attaching them onto the center of the dowel using lark's head knots. Once you have all 18 cords attached, we're now going to start a series of square knots. But these square knots are going to be made slightly different than our typical square knot. Instead of using the outer 2 cords as the working cords of the 4 cords to make the square knot, we're going to take the inner 2 cords as the working cords. So we're going to flip the inner cords outwards and use those as working cords to make 2 opposite half knots to form a square knot. Start with the far left 4 cords first, then continue to the right with the next consecutive 4 cords at a time. Remembering to always flip the inner cords and use those as working cords for the square knot. Continue to the right until all the cords are made into square knots. Once you have the first row of square knots made, we're going to make some alternating square knots. We're going to skip the first one on the left, and then in between the second and third square knots from the left at the top, we're going to make an alternating square knot underneath. So taking 2 cords from each square knot, same thing as what we did before, flip the inner cords as the working cords to make the square knot. Then continue to the right for 5 more square knots. Now underneath, we're going to continue with this V-shaped pattern that we started, and we're going to start from the far left 2 square knots and then make an alternating square knot underneath. Then we're going to continue to the right 4 more times. Continue this pattern to the right, and then continue this V-shaped pattern underneath until you have reached only 1 square knot in the middle of the pattern. So with every row underneath, there should be 1 square knot less. This row will have 5 square knots, and then the row underneath will have 4, 3, 2, and then 1. Once you are complete with the V-shaped square knot pattern, we're now going to start on the left side with a berry knot. So in between the far left 2 square knots at the top, underneath we're going to take the 4 cords, 2 cords from each side, and we're going to make 3 consecutive square knots. And these square knots are the regular square knots with the outer cords as the working cords. Once the 3 consecutive square knots are made, we're going to take the middle 2 cords and we're going to weave it above the first square knot in the hole above. Pull the cord ends through the back, and then using the same working cords from the sides, finish off with 1 more square knot to hold the berry knot in place. Then we're going to make a series of alternating berry knots diagonally to the right. So following this V-shaped pattern on the sides, instead of square knots, we're making a series of berry knots. So taking the right 2 cords from underneath the berry knot we just made, and then the 2 cords adjacent to it on the right, make another berry knot. Continue following this pattern diagonally to the right for 5 more berry knots. There should be a total of 7 berry knots on the left side. Then we're going to do the same thing on the right side, mirroring what we just did on the left for 7 berry knots to the left this time. Starting in between and underneath the far right 2 square knots up at the top, make 3 consecutive square knots to form the berry knot. Then continue diagonally to the left until you've made a total of 7 berry knots. Once complete with 7 berry knots on both sides, we are going to make 1 more berry knot in the middle with the middle 4 cords. Now we're going to take the far left cord as the anchor cord and make a diagonal row of double half hitch knots to the right. So taking the next cord to the right as the working cord, make a double half hitch knot onto the anchor cord. Then continue to the right until we have reached the middle left cord and we have attached that onto the same anchor cord using a double half hitch knot. Continue diagonally to the right, stopping after the middle left cord. Now we're going to do the same thing on the right side, using the far right cord as the anchor cord, starting with the next cord to it on the left as the working cord for a double half hitch knot, then continue diagonally to the left. Close off the double half hitch knot V-shaped pattern with one more double half hitch knot in the center with the two anchor cords. I'm going to make mine diagonally to the left, so using the left cord as the working cord. This is the part where we're going to start using our smaller scraps. So if you have small scraps at about 3 inches to 4 inches in length, which means it's about 7 to 10 centimeters, then that is great for this part of the pattern, which is the fluff of the pattern. We're going to take a small strand of cord at 3 to 4 inches long and make a lark's head knot onto the far left cord. We're going to make 3 of these lark's head knots per cord, but we're also not going to attach these onto every single cord. We're going to make 3 consecutive lark's head knots onto every second cord. If you don't have any scraps lying around and this is your first project that you're going to work on, then all you have to do is cut out short strands at about 3 inches long to make these lark's head knots. So I have all 3 onto the far left cord. Now we're going to skip the next cord, and on the third cord from the left, we're going to make another 3 lark's head knots. Then continue this pattern to the right, skipping the cord after, and then on the second cord, make 3 lark's head knots. So this is what the pattern should look like once you have every second cord attached with 3 lark's head knots. Now we're going to repeat a previous pattern and using the far left cord as the anchor cord, make a diagonal double half hitch knot row to the right. And like the last one, we're going to stop after the middle left cord. So it's okay that your fringe looks super messy and some are longer than the others. We're going to trim the fringe towards the end of the pattern. So we'll come back to the trimming of the fringe to make it nice and fluffy. But for now, make the diagonal row of double half hitch knots, and then we're going to repeat the same thing on the right side. So once the left side is complete, we're going to repeat the exact same pattern on the right side, mirroring the left, starting with the far right cord with 3 lark's head knots and doing that every second cord after. And then also use the far right cord to make a diagonal row of double half hitch knots to the left. So once you have both sides complete, we're going to finish off that V-shaped double half hitch knot pattern with one more double half hitch knot in the center. Starting on the left side again, we're going to skip about an inch of space and then use the far left cord again for another diagonal row of double half hitch knots to the right. Once you're done on the left side, repeat on the right side. Close off with one more double half hitch knot in the center. This is the part where we will be using some of our longer scrap cords. If you do have scrap cords this long, if not, cut individual cords at about 80 centimeters long each. And we're going to take 2 of the 80 centimeter long cords and we're going to thread one end through the left side of the loop. So we're going to work with the far left 2 loops. Take the left cord ends and weave it through the left side and in between, and then take the right cord ends through the right loop and then pull them through in between as well. Then pull on all 4 cord ends to tighten the knot. Repeat with another 2 strands of 80 centimeter long cords with the next 2 loops to the right. So through the right side first and then the left to the left side, and then pull all 4 cord ends in between both of the loops in the center at the bottom. I'm going to repeat this knot for you once more, and then you can repeat with the remainder of the 80 centimeter long cords diagonally to the right, with 2 loops at a time. Once the left side is complete, we're going to do the same thing on the right side. What we're going to do now is trim the fringe at the bottom. I'm going to trim mine in the shape of a V, which it already should look like at the bottom, but there are some excess longer cords from the base pattern from behind that we're going to trim off, and then we're going to make our V a little bit sharper. There's likely some excess cords that you had trimmed off from the back of the pattern. Save those scraps for now, as we're going to be including some of them onto that fluffy fringe at the top. So now we're going to take a fringe comb and we're going to comb through the fluffy fringe pattern that we had made at the top, underneath the berry knot. We're going to fluff out the fringe and then trim the fringe so that they are the same length. If you feel that it is pretty sparse, in those empty cords in between the fluff, you can include more lark's head knots from the scrap cords that you had just cut off. With the scrap cords that I cut off, I ended up attaching them all in between the fluffy fringe on the empty cords in between. Once you have attached some new lark's head knots, you can comb them out like what we did for the other ones and then trim them as well. Once the fluffy fringe part is done, we're going to go back to the bottom and add another layer of fringe using the same knot pattern that we had did before, directly above where we added the bottom row. So this time we're going to make them slightly shorter. So if you have 40 or 45 centimeter long scrap cords, then we're going to double them up and attach them right above the bottom row of fringe, using the same knot, so 2 loops at a time. So taking the cord ends on both sides and then bringing them through the middle of the loops. So repeat this all the way through the right side diagonally to the left, and then on the left side diagonally to the right. Once this pattern is complete on both sides, you should see 2 layers of fringe, and now we're just going to quickly trim the fringe at the very bottom and the layer on top so that they are nice and even. Or if you like the messy look of it, you can just trim off certain excess cords depending on the look you are trying to get. Last but not least, taking a 40 centimeter strand of cord, we're just going to make a handle at the top of the wall hanging. What I usually do is I make 2 double overhand knots at the back of the pattern. I'm going to weave it through the top of the dowel, and then on both sides I'm going to make a double overhand knot. And that's a wrap with the boho macrame wall hanging tutorial. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. My favorite part of it is the fluffy fringe that we added at the center of the wall hanging. I love adding texture to a piece, and fluffy fringe is one of those techniques that I love incorporating into a macrame piece. Let me know in the comment section below what your guys' thoughts are and what your favorite part of the design was. And I just wanted to let you guys know that if you are a beginner with macrame, we do offer several macrame starter kits. I found that when I was a beginner, the easiest way to get started with macrame was to follow someone else's pattern, but also to use the cord that they recommend. The cord in most of our kits is the foundation single strand, super soft but sturdy macrame cord. I definitely recommend this cord if you are just starting out with macrame, since it's super soft on the hands, making it really easy to macrame with, but it also looks really nice as well. If you guys are interested in seeing what kind of patterns that we offer with our starter kits, you can check out the links in the video description below to our Bochi Knot shop. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.